We won't have time to hear from every table, but I thought we'd hear 4 or 5 responses just to see hear if there's a range of responses or whether there's actually one sort of common held definition. So anybody want to volunteer what their conversation sounded like at their table? Oh, there we go.
I think our conversation really reflected where we were coming from and our thinking and our backgrounds, and we had a real variety of what we saw as the purpose. So I would say that we had one singular.
Do you want to say what the polls were or what the range was?
I think the key thing that was all about the children and maximising the benefits for them from all aspects of their lives, and that the learning comes from all of those, and coming back to that.
Thank you. What's interesting about that comment to me is that, I mean, it's a kind of classic organizational theory statement or political science statement, which is where you stand on the issue comes from where you sit. So I think that's interesting to hear something like that.
We had a similar discussion to the previous table. We just probably came up with a sentence to provide better life opportunities for our children and develop stronger communities which contribute to enhanced life chances.
Oh, I like it. We did. I'm saying it's table.
That's great.
We talked a little bit about, I think we were all on the same page, basically, but we thought, without the engagement of parents, there's no such thing as a holistic education. And we perpetuate the myth then that schools are standalone institutions. And the image we had for that was the castle keep with the drawbridge going down and up at specific times of the day. And then Christine shared with us that she worked in the States some years ago where there was actually barbed wire rather than a castle keep and a security guard on the door, so to keep the parents out.
It's great to try to articulate such an answer to a simple question, and what came to my mind was schools are centred on the children. In doing the best for the children, we enrol and serve the whole family, not just the child, and we do the work together.
We had a little bit of conversation about how we have to remember that parental engagement is not only about outcomes for children, that while a purpose of parental engagement is to improve the engagement with learning and the well-being of children, it's also about building capacity of parents and giving them the opportunity to rethink about their learning and life experiences as well.
We had a complete diversity of views, so I'll give you the shortest one we came up with, which was enhanced educational outcomes and experiences.
Great, thank you. I think there's one more.
We kind of spoke about empowering families, so both students and parents, this kind of self-determination to, facilitate, families, students determining their own kind of pathways.
Great, thank you very much. So I'm going to try to pick up those threads and say, my purpose with having you do this activity wasn't just to break up the monotony of listening to me, but also to emphasize something I take really seriously, which is if you want to know if your work makes a difference, you have to be explicit about what your purpose in doing that work was. Because how else will you know? How else do you do any kind of self-assessment unless you can articulate what you're doing? Otherwise, you're swimming towards the horizon, and you will never get there. So I also think it's crucial in a group like this, which is convened around a common topic, that we in this room articulate or make clear what systems of belief undergird our investment in this area, so that we can see where those possible connections between home and school and community agency exist, and where those potential barriers come from, rather than just plain old simple stubbornness. I think sometimes our ideas about what we're trying to accomplish may have some explanatory power for why it's so difficult to do this work, rather than just that, people are sometimes selfish or whatever, or don't have enough time. Okay, so thanks for that. Thanks for that participation. I also don't think, this isn't in my notes, but I don't think it's necessary that we come to a uniform definition about what parental development is for. But I do think it's important that we find allies, that we share a perspective of what we're working on. We don't have to all decide on one single answer, but we have to find the folks who are working on it in the same way and work together consistently with that. Okay, the next slide. So what are the different purposes? So researchers focus on a range of different kinds of intervention. On the one hand, there are school-based initiatives designed to bring parents to school, some things like volunteering or site-based decision-making committees or literacy night or something like that. There are parental strategies like encouraging people to read to their children or structuring conversations about how to help with homework that align with school goals. Both of those are very school-based. Another third is thinking about different kinds of governance structures. How involved are parents in the hiring of a new principal? How involved are parents in hiring, period, if at all? Or the decisions around a new curriculum? Site-based decision-making committees are another sort of area where researchers tend to focus on. Now, the question that I have in thinking and talking about purposes is whether or not in efforts to engage parents are a goal in and of themselves, they would be worth doing regardless, or because doing it gets you something else, right? Is your goal improved achievement, that's why you're doing the engagement of parents? Or is engagement of parents a value in and of itself? We heard a range of answers to that question in your definitions of what parental engagement was for just now. So, for example, you might imagine that a government would be invested in parental engagement policies because it creates a sense of investment in the institution of public schooling. And after healthcare, education is a big chunk of budget. Right? So it would be a good idea that people believe in the expenditures that are being made in that institution. Or is the idea of parental engagement its own is it the grease that makes or is it the fuel that makes other kinds of interventions possible? So you'll see from some different researchers. Okay, let me just go on to that. So different claims reflected multiple purposes we have for involvement. There's parental involvement as a goal in itself. So one quote I have from a policy document says that parental involvement, quote, supports the vision of our schools as places of partnership and respect. So you do it because you want to create a sense of collective effort. Parental involvement is key to the set of school improvements that we wish to see, quote, support student achievement and well-being. Interestingly, both of those quotes come from the same policy document from the province of Ontario. So one of them is it's a goal in itself, and one of them is it gets you it gets you student achievement. How about parental involvement for helping parents, building their own social capital, helping students, helping schools? Now, I'm interested, and we'll talk about this more tomorrow when I'm talking about evaluation, about the theories of action behind this. I think it's useful for us as people interested in this area to talk about what the theory of action is behind our investment in this topic. We believe that investing in parental engagement initiatives is going to lead to what? Why? Why do we think that it's going to lead to these other things? Why will it lead to a flattening of hierarchy, like Debbie Busher says? Maybe it will lead to more hierarchy. Why would we think it would lead to a sense of collective effort? Parents don't speak in one voice. We talk about parental engagement as if it's going to be a uniform belief. Parents are also sometimes called voters. And, voters don't tend to agree on what destination we should have as a society. So when we think about parental engagement, we also have to be thinking about those kind of potential conflicts. So, okay. Now, this guy was my advisor at Berkeley, Norton Grubb. He wrote a book called The Money Myth recently in 2011. And it's a really interesting book. He's not a neoconservative or anything like that, but he does basically say when you're going to think about the investments in schooling and budgets, you need to be, as you know, in times of shrinking public investment in public institutions, you need to have other solutions to problems other than dollar bills. And not every problem can be solved with a dollar bill. For example, school climate. How do I go to the school climate store? You know, I can buy a smaller class size, I can buy a new building, I can buy a computer. I can't necessarily, in that same direct, simple way, buy better teaching, a more engaged community, or greater professional capacity. So what he talks about is this abstract resource of positive family-school relationships. That it is a resource that can be leveraged by school leaders and other educators inside schools to make school improvement more likely. And he studied it through sort of a quantitative analysis of a large data set to come up with this idea of abstract resources rather than simple resources. Now, another person who sounds quite similar to that is Tony Breik and his colleagues out of Chicago. So they, the Chicago Consortium on School Research has been working for a couple of decades on studying the Chicago public school system's experiment in decentralization, which is to say in parental engagement and management at the school site level. And what they found is that there are 5 essential supports for school improvement, and one of those 5 is, quote, strong parent-community school ties. And they define it this way: this support refers to whether schools are a welcoming place for parents and whether there are strong connections between the school and local institutions. Elementary schools, this is an empirical finding, not an aspiration, but an empirical finding. Elementary schools with strong parental involvement were 10 times more likely to improve in math and 4 times more likely to improve in reading than schools weak on this measure. So this is a quantitatively substantiated explanation for why it makes a difference for a school to invest its time in parent-community school ties. They also go on to say the quality of these ties links directly to students' motivation and school participation and can provide a critical resource for classrooms. So this is why I also think it's important to start talking about the theories of change that we have behind our ideas of investing in parental engagement or involvement. It's not that the parent-community tie sort of magically leads to greater output on a test, but it may create a sense of common purpose and greater collaborative work and greater stability in a school, which itself then leads several steps down the line to a test score result. But it's important to think about it as a resource and not a panacea. Okay. Now, Robinson and Harris are skeptical of school-based efforts, and they decide instead, their recommendation is to focus instead on this idea of stage setting. And it's interesting to me, they basically leave the school out of the picture. And they basically say, you want to think about parental involvement, and you want to think about impact of parental involvement, think outside the school box. Stage setting is a conception of parental involvement that includes 2 components. 1, conveying the importance of education to a child, and 2, the creation of and maintenance of an environment or life space in which learning can be maximized or at the very least, not compromised. Now, I'm still digesting this new book, so I have some cranky things to say about it, but I think I should hold those back a little bit. But I will only say that when I hear researchers talking about intervening in parenting habits, it's not far from that assertion to it's the parents that are the problem, not the salaried adults in the school. And if I'm going to think about public investments, I'm going to think about the people who are collecting a salary in a public institution and think about the efforts they need to be making to connect with parents, because that's where I, as a policymaker, are more likely to have influence. There, I said I wasn't going to be crankier than I was. No, don't have to be consistent. I'll say it's the jet lag. All right. Now, from analysis to action. I wanted to talk about Ontario and use Ontario as kind of a case study for looking at these different examinations and purposes. So, from my perspective, and we had a conversation about this at our table this morning when we were just sort of getting warmed up. From my perspective, the role of policy is to move from islands of excellence to more institutionalized approaches. How do we get away from this idea? We can all think of a school that does this amazing thing with its parental engagement, but we can think of them very quickly because they are unusual, not because they are typical, right? So how do we make it more typical that parents and families and communities are engaged and not unusual? That's a question, I think, and that we should be asking policymakers. I also think that a role of policy is to establish at least a floor or baseline for the kind of parental engagement that every institution should be engaged in. And hopefully, a role for policy is to make things better, not worse. But I think we can think of examples of the second. So the question is parental engagement policy, it's a strand that we should look for, that should be embedded throughout all educational policies, or is it a standalone on its own? And I think that there are strengths to both approaches. If you have it to stand on its own, then it's an appendage, and appendages are easily cut. Right? If you have a parental engagement office and department that's disconnected from the other core work of an educational institution, it, in times of stress or pressure, it would be easy to get rid of it. On the other hand, having a beachhead, having a location, having an institutional identity provides you with a place from which to access conversations that are influencing the life of the school. And if you don't have that explicitly defined place, those conversations are a lot harder because you're not viewed as legitimate. So there's trade-offs. Now, just to give you a little bit of context about Ontario. In 2013, there were 2.1 million students in public school in Ontario. Most kids go to public school. There were 4,891 schools. We've got 72 school boards. There are 31 English public, 4 French public, 29 English Catholic. The province of Ontario publicly funds Catholic schooling, and 8 French Catholic. So the language differential is the bilingual, a country of 2 languages. The public versus Catholic system is a sort of minority rights legacy from a while ago. So that's why we've got these 4 systems. There are 115,000-ish classroom teachers, $21 billion in operating funding, and their graduation rate has gone up. It's at about 83%. Our current premier, who I would be very fond of, is named Kathleen Wynne. She was the former education minister. She's also an out lesbian, and it's like, politics in Canada I thought would be boring as an American, because Americans don't know anything about Canada. But I'll tell you, provincial politics is interesting with Kathleen Wynne and her Toronto counterpart, the crack-smoking mayor, Rob Ford. Which I could talk about for the next 75 minutes, but I think I won't. Maybe you can talk to me at the next coffee break. All right. So, Ontario efforts. In 2005, a new Liberal government established a Parental Engagement Office as part of an explicit strategy to reconnect with families and communities after 2 terms of a Conservative government that, in their own words, created a crisis in education because they viewed teachers and the public servants in them, other public servants in schools, as adversaries. And so part of the sort of stability that the Liberal government since 2005 has brought is an attempt, one of the 3 explicit goals of the Liberal government's education efforts is actually to increase public confidence in schooling. So one of the ways to do that is to create and establish a parental engagement office. That was in 2005. In 2010, that particular office was linked to another policy, the Equity and Inclusive Schools policy. Actually, it's a framework. So you can see that these 2 things are now kind of intertwined. viewed as an equity issue. That's not the, there are other ways that you could think of parental engagement, but viewing it as an equity issue I think is interesting. There's a publication called Parents in Partnership that looks at the parent engagement and policy, and I've quoted the 4 strategies here just so that we can take a look at how policymakers use language to think about parental engagement. So strategy 1 focuses on school climate, to foster and sustain a positive, welcoming school climate in which all parent perspectives are encouraged, valued, and heard. Strategy 2 is eliminating barriers, which means identifying and removing barriers to parent engagement that may prevent some parents from fully participating in their children's learning and to reflect the diversity of our students and communities. The third is support for parents, to provide parents with the knowledge, skills, and tools they need to support student learning at home and at school. And the fourth is parent outreach, to review and expand communication. I've been hearing a lot about communication this morning. And outreach strategies such as workshops, presentations. Another thing they do, and this is crucial, right? I shouldn't be too critical of them, is that the province funds these things called PRO grants, or parent reaching out grants. And they fund local, regional, and provincial initiatives that are designed to break down barriers to parental engagement faced by many parents in Ontario. Just to give you a sense, there are school councils of publicly funded schools can apply for these parent reaching out grants for schools, so a school council can apply for $1,000. It doesn't come automatically. There is a review process. So if you want to buy, uniforms for sports teams, not likely. If you want to organize a workshop around, numeracy with some parents to help them learn how to do long division, I take that example from the table over there, then you would likely get the $1,000. And parent organizations, more largely, can, in collaboration, as long as the proposal is parent-led, can apply for up to $30,000. So since 2006, the government has supported over 15,000 PRO grants to school councils and 568 regional or provincial grants. That's not nothing, right? That's an investment. Now, that's a total investment of $24 million to help increase parental involvement and support of student achievement and well-being. That's their explicit statement, right? That's what they're trying to accomplish. Now, what I also think is interesting is, I should take seriously as an academic that presents a series of questions. So if I want to think about impact, I need to start looking at these. A $24 million investment is something. It's more than just symbolic. These strategies back here sound to me like aspiration. These things that we would like to do. This is not an aspiration. These are concrete, mundane, blunt interventions. Do they make any difference? It's worth assessing and studying. Or in what ways do they make a difference? Or to whom do they make a difference? That's a research question. And so with a doctoral student named Dan Hamlin, I'm very lucky because he actually proposed the project to me. That the first step we're going to do is going to be descriptive. We're going to research the kinds of programs that have been funded, the numbers of schools and other organizations involved. There isn't any published research on these PRO grants other than kind of the reporting that a government would do that would characterize what kinds of programs are getting funded. Are these replacing, is the province using these to replace the fundraising that wealthy schools can do? We don't know. It might be, if you want to tackle a hornet's nest of problems, be a policymaker trying to talk about parents' private fundraising for a public school. That's a controversial topic. But so maybe what the province is doing here is trying to top up low-income schools' fundraising ability by giving them these grant funds. Or maybe not. Maybe they're solely focused on literacy and numeracy initiative. Or maybe not. Maybe there's cultural stuff or multiculturalism stuff happening there too. So the next step after that will be to attempt to identify an assessment or evaluation criteria that the grant holders themselves use to assess their own effectiveness. I want to know how the people who get these grants decide whether or not they did a good job. Now, what's their evidence for having done a good job. In the same way that I want to know how principals come to their definition of, oh, the parents in this school are like this. And I'm always curious where that set of ideas comes from. I want to know how the parents who are involved in these initiatives define what they were up to. And it's not published anywhere. So that's the next project. And then the final step will be analysis and baseline data to come up with some recommendations. Are there blind spots in the policy? Of course there are going to be. But what are they? And what are the positive things that could be an example for other jurisdictions? So, we're almost done. So, Carl Corder and Jan Peltier in 2005 published an article about parental involvement that said, I think they called it problem or panacea, something like that, where they became aware that, especially in the early childhood realm, that parental involvement is like the solution to all problems. That the way that you get all of these fantastic outcomes is to invest in parental involvement. And they thought, well, is that true? And how, what explains the popularity of this perspective? And they ended up concluding that more research examining the processes that link aims, practices, and outcomes, and more attention to specific outcomes that go beyond client and practitioner satisfaction are needed. I agree with that. I mean, I think about practitioner satisfaction. I'll talk about this tomorrow, but one of the typical ways of assessing whether or not parental engagement is having an impact is you ask people if they're happy with it. And we can imagine a scenario where people would be unhappy with the level of parental engagement, but in fact be very engaged. It may be a greater measure of their sense of entitlement than their engagement. Right? You can also imagine very disengaged parents or families or communities saying, sure, it's fine. Right? So satisfaction isn't sufficient as an assessment of whether or not parental engagement policies are having an impact. That might be necessary. I'd rather people be satisfied than not. But it's not sufficient. And in Ontario, where there's a wide range of policies that are influencing the emergence and development of partnerships, I think it's important to study how those policies make their way from a centralized government location into a school board, into another, how do they get translated? What are the fingerprints that get on these policies that start in a provincial capital and end up as a school site? Does it look the way that policymakers hoped when it is coming to life at the school level? And how are those aspirations for parental engagement being changed along the way? And with that, I will stop talking. Thank you very much for your attention.